Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor Ajmer Singh Malik, Department of Public Administration, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra. Today we will have another lecture for you that's on plan formulation and its implementation in India. The module or the lecture has to provide the relevance, structure and fundamental aspects of planning in India. And our discussion will focus on the context of plan formulation and its implementation, especially to tell you about the need of planning, the objective of planning, the fundamental of economic policy, structure of planning in India, and the details of all 5-year plans with context to periodical revisions and the changes. So in this regard, first of all, I would like to share with you that planning is a fundamental basis for a nation's development, particularly in a country where you don't have enough resources for a large number of people, or the huge population, and that's also stricken with the poverty. There is essentially a need of planning. The basis of planning is a natural and inevitable process. The reason being, if we don't use our resources in an effective and efficient or systematic manner, then it may not be possible to cater even the basic needs of the population. Therefore, there may be, and in other words, we can say there are different kinds of needs, or why we need planning. There are different regions and there are different perspective of those needs. There may be economic perspective, that our country is facing acute problem of poverty. About 30% of population are under poverty line. There are social perspective also. Generally, our society believes in traditional system, traditional lifestyles. We have not been modern in our outlook. And that's why we have to bring a social change or the social development. That's why the planning is having a social perspective also. You may have seen that in our society, particularly, there are gender discrimination, there are caste-based discriminations, there are religious kind of distinctions among the people, and that's why there are social that carries the social perspective of planning. I am re-emphasizing it, that there is a need for the social progress, social change, or social development. The third perspective is called the political perspective, and that political perspective means that polity, particularly for establishing the democracy in society, for building up the nations, and other things relating to that aspect. The planning requires that we may be able to build up. We will be able to bring in nation building. We will be able to strengthen our democracy. We will be able to ensure participation of the people in the political process. That's very important. We call it the political development. And the planning may be by the socio-economic, the other perspective, by the socio-economic perspective, or you call it socio-economic and political perspective in a combined sense, and in total we want to develop our society, and that is having the three things: social, economic and political change in the society, and that's why planning is also having three perspectives. Then, as India becomes more concerned about its development after independence, or we say when we were fighting the struggle for our independence, that there were some people, particularly during 1930s and thereafter, that we were concerned that how we educate or how we ensure progress of our society. Some of the visionary, they laid down certain pathways, and they emphasized there is a need of planning in India. Not only that one, the progress or socio-economic progress made in Russia, erstwhile Russia, that has motivated our leaders to have some sort of planning in the country. As an initial step taken in our country, that is the formation of National Planning Committee under the chairmanship of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. In real sense, it was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru who was fascinated with the planning, who was fascinated with the progress made in erstwhile Russia, and that's why by the then president, under the presidency of the then President Sri Subhash Chandra Bose in 1938, this committee was constituted under the chairmanship of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And there are certain some very well-known industrialists in India. That is, they come together, and that those were set, and that is that when they come together, that plan is known as Bombay Plan in 1944, and that Bombay Plan projected economic development through the active role of state machinery, and that requires, they emphasized the need of planning in India. In 1950, as a result of all these developments, there are other development also, and along with this Bombay Plan and National Planning Committee, that ultimately we got independence, and in 1950 we established the Planning Commission by an executive order. The Planning Commission proposed to be established in 1950. That proposed that the planning will be undertaken through the strategic framework of 5-year plans. This strategic framework, which has been followed since then, has flexibility and scope for directional change and focused reorientation. Again, I would like to emphasize that when we established Planning Commission, which was headed by the Prime Minister at that time, Nehru, and naturally certain members were inducted in it, cabinet ministers were there, and that Planning Commission was entrusted with the job to check out or to frame 5-year plans for the social and socio-economic development of the country. It identified certain areas of development, and as a result of that, and with this purpose, we developed an institutional framework in the subsequent years. No doubt, at this present time, Planning Commission is not there, but since 1950 to the present century, for about 60 years and more, we undertook, or we have been engaged with the 5-year plans, 12 5-year plans, and that's why it is relevant to discuss how the Planning Commission and the different institutions associated with the Planning Commissions have been successfully formulated the plans and implemented those plans. Particularly, if you see in the industrial policy orientation since 1956, that is the Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, that was associated with the state controlling or production and industrial development till 1990s. Or you can say, in 1991, when we opened our economy, that is, we liberalized our economy, we globalized our economy, and prioritized the development of the country. Only then, up to then, the state has been in a controlling position to direct the social and economic development of the country, and that social and economic development of the country was designed as well as directed by the Planning Commission in association with the National Development Council. Therefore, Keeping in view the fact that the Planning Commission has been in the steering role for the development of the country, therefore we will discuss about its structure, how it was composed of. Normally, if you say that Prime Minister was the chairman of this Planning Commission, and since its inception in 1950, the commission normally comprises of some members, and the number of members that varied from one commission to another commission. First of all, it has been a history, although it has been a history, but it has been a unique feature that most of the time, if not always, most of the time, the deputy chairman of the commission was appointed by the personal wishes, as per the personal wishes of the Prime Minister. No doubt, Prime Minister was the chairman, the deputy chairman was in real sense the executive officer or the main guiding force for the Planning Commission. There was a Ministry of Planning. When Ministry of Planning was established, then cabinet rank Minister of Planning, he has remained as a permanent member of the Planning Commission. Similarly, Ministry of Finance or Finance Minister has always been the member of the Planning Commission. The reason being, the resources required for the implementation of planning has to come through the Finance Ministry. That's why. Another important minister, that is the Minister of Defense, he has also been the member of the Planning Commission. Besides these commissions, there have been certain experts or people having experience in different walk of life or different areas or the sectors of economy which requires some sort of state directions or government directions and control. That is, development in that particular area requires a state control. Those were appointed. In the similar way, like we have other institutions, constitutional and non-constitutional, the members of the Planning Commissions were both as part-time also, as well as the full-time members were there. And naturally, that has played an important role, and that has been considered one of the factors which made the Planning Commission a successful one. At least during the years we need it most, and that's why. And the reason is why I'm saying like that after economic liberalizations, the role of the Planning Commission has become a limited one, because the development is not now state controlled, rather it is an indicative kind of the planning. That's why the role has been limited one. And what are the roles and functions of this commission? This is again an important aspect. First of all, we are listing some of the important areas or important role and functions which Planning Commission performed during the period it has been in control of planning for all of the social and economic development. The first one is that it undertook the analysis of the resources, which means that the actual analysis of all the resources with the perspective of assessment of capacity and potential. Means what kind of resources are available within the country, the physical, human and financial one. That has been undertaken by the Planning Commission, and it's an important wing. Then the second is the analysis. That the second role is that the analysis of resource augmentation possibilities with the backdrop of need for the same. Means how to enrich our resources, human, physical, both of them. And the third is the formulation of plans, 5-year plans, prospective plans. Although we are aware of, most of us are aware of the 5-year plans. Otherwise, the Planning Commission was also interested with the prospective planning or the long-term planning, whatever you can say. Even the 5-year plans which were formulated by the planning which were used to be formulated by the planning commissions, those were divided into different annual plans also. Resource allocation, financial and other all these things, and the different steps involved in the implementation of planning on annual basis and periodical review, all of those are a part of the formulation of plan. Then fourth, we can say enumerating and structuring the priority of the plan to need and resource assessment. Enumeration and structuring of the priority, that is very important, because it is undertaken through the political process, and that's why the political process which assess that what is required, or what should have what kind of priority has to be assessed to which area or which sector of economy, that is to be assessed. No doubt that is in a political process. And one important institution, National Development Council, I have referred it earlier also, National Development Council, which is not only the approval which not only the the approving agency of the 5-year plans and annual plans, but that has also been composed of the chief ministers and the important ministers and headed by the Prime Minister. That has become a deliberation platform to determine the priorities of the countries, or to determine the development priorities of the country. That is also performed by this planning commission. Then defining of the plan implementation stages and the processes. This is again a very important aspect, although I have referred it earlier also when I stated that 5-year plans are composed of 5 annual plans and all those things. But here I would like to refer some of the other things. The planning process, or the planning institutional framework in India, which was created over the years after 1950, not only consists of the planning commissions and thereafter in 1952 the establishment of the National Development Council, so as to give and so as to accord the political patronage, or the political support, rather I would like to say, the political support to the planning process. But there are other institutions. There are other institutions also which were created during 1960s and thereafter. Particularly, if we see that at the state level, the state planning boards were established. Similarly, the state planning department were established. Not only that one, economic and statistical organization for making the assessment of the resources available in that state and to identify the priorities, those were also established. At the district level also, statistical department were established. Not only the statistical department, but lately 92 and onwards, and even before that, we discussed about the district development council and district planning committee or district planning process, and the sub-district planning process also. Nowadays, we also talk about the village level planning, although it was not there at the time. It was after the post-liberalization. It is in the after the post-liberalization era that we established these institutions and made them more effective. These district level and sub-district level agencies were not as effective as these are nowadays. But that those agencies, all these agencies, district level agencies, state level agencies, and the central government level agencies, those were those agencies collaborated their efforts, coordinated their activities in such a manner so that they can devise the plan in such a systematic manner, and so that it may be implemented in a right perspective, and it may be divided into the different stages, and the process for each and every kind of the process relating to planning that could be charted out, not only for the planning purpose, rather for implementation of that one. And that's why there is another important thing is which is associated with all these institutions, which and the communication in between these communication channels in between these institutions, among these institutions, that is to identify the barriers, in the plan implementation, and how those barriers can be removed or can be utilized as enablers for the social and economic development of the country. Natural from the development efforts or the development from the process of the economic development when we are implementing the plan, that helps and that their strengthening of those enablers through appropriate process and the resource augmentation, that may help in achieving the desired goals. I would like to tell you here, although I will discuss in later on also, that most of the times what we expected, most of the times, not always, most of the times what we expected or whatever our targets have been, those could not be achieved because of those barriers. And that's why it is considered very important that the barriers may be removed and enablers which facilitate the implementation of plan, that must be strengthened so that we may able to get we may be able to achieve the targets set up for the annual plans as well as 5-year plans. And that is, and how to remove them, how to remove those things within a stipulated time. This requires a proper understanding, proper assessment, and the naturally adequate and very specific kind of the solutions to remove all those things. Allocating human resources and determining the organizational structure for plan implementation, that has been considered a very important aspect of the planning process, and that has been considered as a process where we can remove the obstructions and utilize all those organizations or all those structures and the human resources as an enablers, so that we may be able to get the results, or we may be able to get the objectives fulfilled. And in another way, we can say while implementing the plan, while at the implementation stage of the plan, we can reanalyze our policy, reanalyze our plans, the periodic revisions, that is an important aspect. Earlier, there used to be a midterm appraisal of the 5-year plans, that is after 2.5 years, we used to assess it, but the process of analyzing what we have done, what we have not been able to do during the plan period, that was a lengthy process. And by the time that midterm appraisal was there, already most of the plan period was over, and as a result of that, we could utilize the findings of the midterm appraisal on in the next plan. But whatever it is, that's since planning process, and this country is so big, and the development process itself is a complex one, and that's why it may not be possible to have a very systematic and very we can say specific kind of solutions for each and every kind of the system, or we may not be able to diagnose it while implementing it. No doubt the process of the monitoring and evaluation, that's a continuous process that was utilized, but that was undertaken but not properly utilized, particularly at the time of the plan is implemented. It was rectified in the subsequent annual plans or in subsequent 5-year plans. Then another important thing is that the recommendation made as a result of those evaluations, and whenever it is required, that is based on the feedback and the monitoring process of the plan implementation. That's an important area, and that has been. Now, before we discuss the different 5-year plans, I would like to tell one important thing, that as I have told you, there are different level of institutions. What the 5-year plans have been undertaken in the different areas which states supposed or which the government is supposed to undertake those activities in those particular field, and that efforts have been made that whatever the priorities of the first 5-year plan 1951 to 1956. The first 5-year plan, naturally, it was the brainchild of Pandit Nehru, and the primary aim of the first 5-year plan was to improve living standard of the people of India. At that time, the major objective was, that is, how to improve the living standard of the people of India, and this could be done. It was thought in the 5-year plan document that this could be done by making judicious use of India's natural resources and an outlay with a meager outlay. At the time, the cost we didn't have much resources or plenty of resources with us, and that's why we started with rupees 2069 crores. The second 5-year plan, not second 5-year plan, but in the first 5-year plan, the focus was on industrial sector, energy, irrigation, transport, communication, social services, development of agriculture and community, miscellaneous issues. And you will be surprised to know that we were expecting that the growth rate will be 2.1% every year. This was again a small, we expected only a small growth because we started from zero, and at that time it was difficult to achieve with the meager resources and meager understanding, and at that time we were not having the adequate organizational setup for the implementation of the 5-year plans. And but we could grow at the rate of 3.6% per annum, and this is clear indication of the success of the first 5-year plan, or you can say that we can rate it. And there are such an important achievement during that is Metro Dam, Hirakund Dam, Bhakra Dam. Those were constructed during that period, and particularly agriculture. As a result of this, that agriculture got some strength, and the landless workers also got employment out of these activities. Not only this one, the cooperative institutions were also set up so as to promote the economic development and so as to engage the people around us in the economic development process of the country. The second plan, 5-year plan, that was during 1956 to 1961, that focused on industry, especially heavy industry. And I say this is the plan followed the very Mahalanobis model of economic development, and in real sense it is Indian statistician Prasanta Chandra Mohan Wallace who has given this model of development for the India. And as a result of that, the physical infrastructures, that is the hydroelectric projects, etc., steel plants, particularly at Bhilai, Durgao and Rourkela, and coal production was increased. The steel plants were established and coal production was increased. Moreover, railway network was added to the northeast of our country. This is an important one. And the focus was on the there is another institution which was set up during this period was the Atomic Energy Commission, which was set up in 1958. And then another important thing is that focus was there on power and irrigation, social services, communication and transport, and the growth target was 4.5%, although we could achieve only 4%. And the 5-year plans allocation was made, that was 4,800. That's it multiplied at least 4 times from the earlier plans. Then the third plans, that is in between 1961 and 66, that it's stressed on the agriculture and improvement in the productions of wheat particularly, and it was plagued by 2 wars: Sino-Indian War of 1962 and Indian-Pakistan War in 1965-66. And the focus was on price stabilization because there was problem related to it. There was a scarcity of food, and the constructions of dams were also emphasized, or we say that investment by the government was made on the construct of dam also. Many steel plants, again, infrastructure industries were set up during this period, and education was also find an important place, or education, particularly primary education, in the form of opening schools, primary schools in rural area. That was also given priority during this plan. And this period also witnessed a democratic decentralization, although it was not in that way, but we can say that panchayats were established to ensure political participation in the development process. Not only that one, the state electricity board and secondary education boards, both for education and as well as electricity promotion, those were added during the plan. Target was 5.6%, but actually growth, it was 2.4%. And then it clearly indicates that the war, that we could not make much progress during this period. Then fourth plan was during the 1969-74, and this witnessed 1969 that nationalization of banking. 14 major Indian banks were nationalized. Green revolutions was introduced during this period. Funds were earmarked for the industrial development, and we say, but there is another war, Indo-Pak war, particularly we call it the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971. That is another important event during this plan. And the one important thing is what we did in this case, that in 1974, if you remember, that we could undertake nuclear explosion, that is in the Bay of Bengal, not a nuclear explosion, and that was in response to the deployment of 7th Fleet in the Bay of Bengal. The reason being, at the time also security concerns were very, very important, and that's why we could do it. And the things were, or the resources were diverted for another kind of the purpose, that's a security. And our targeted growth of 5.7% that could not take place. We could attain only 3.3% of growth during this period. Then fifth 5-year plan, that was again not a very successful story, although the growth rate was 5% against the target of the 4.5%. In another way, we can say that we could attain more than we targeted, but in real sense, during this period, stress was laid on the employment, poverty alleviation programs, and social justice, etc. Plan focused on the self-reliance in agricultural production, and the results of the green revolutions were visible in our economy. But there is a change in the political guardianship, and as a result of that, the model of development has changed from one system to another system. That is, but this period is considered an important in the sense that Electricity Supply Act was enacted in 1975, and National Highway System was established during that period. Moreover, this plan period also witnessed the development of the tourism in the country, or we can say that focus or attention was given to the tourism areas where we could provide more employment and more opportunity for the economic development. Then sixth 5-year plans again. It started with 1980. It was during the periods of 1980-1985. It was again when Congress government came to powers again that government reassessed its economic system, and as a result of that, sometimes later on the people said that it was the beginning of the economic liberalization. The how, we don't know, or we can't comment in the right way because we don't have evidences like that, but the price controls were eliminated for the first time. Ration shops were closed and this led to the increase in the price rise, particularly food price rise, increase in the cost of living. This was the end of the Nehruvian socialism, and the socialism or the socialistic pattern of society that has an Nehruvian socialism that was in real sense replaced by the Rajiv Gandhi's philosophy of liberalizing or of decontrolling some of the activities of the development. Family planning was an important issue. China's that is, we say, China's policy of one child policy that could not be implemented, although the discussion was there. But family planning, or which we call it nowadays family welfare, that has remained an important issue. The sixth five-year plan was considered as a great success in the sense that we targeted the growth at 5.2%, and the actual growth we attained during that period was 5.4. In case of earlier plan, in real sense, although we achieved more than the targeted one, but the targets were quite low, keeping in view a large country and the increasing population, keeping in view the needs of the increasing population in the country. The seventh five-year plan, that's 1985 to 1990, that marked the comeback of Congress party to power, and it improved the productivity level of industries by upgrading the technology. And the objective of the seventh five-year plan was to establish growth in areas of increasing economic productivity, production of food grains, and generating employment. So the important issues which were there: social justice, removal of oppression of the weak people, or we say the weaker section of society, using modern technology was emphasized, agriculture development and anti-poverty programs got the priority during this plan period. Then during the eighth five-year plan, that is 1992 to 1997, modernization of industry was a major highlight of the eighth plan. Under this plan, the gradual opening of Indian economy was undertaken to correct the bourgeoising deficit and foreign debt. India became member of the World Trade Organization in the year 1955, and it is considered an era where the we say Narasimha Rao's and Manmohan Singh model of economic development was introduced through the economic liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And as a result of that, many kind of the reforms were introduced. Most of the time we could say that a 5% per annum growth was expected and it is considered that to have 5.6% of the growth, it is essential that we make an investment of about 23.2% of the gross domestic product. That is the highlight. Or in another way, we can say that we could that realistic plan formulation and a change in economic development and as a result of the privatization, that five-year plans have become now going to be indicative planning in the country. And we say that's why this is considered one of the important, or the impact of the Rao and Manmohan Singh model of economic growth. Next plan was ninth five-year plan, 1997 to 2002, and the objective was the speedy industrialization. I'm emphasizing the word speedy industrialization, and speedy human development, full-scale employment, poverty reduction, and self-reliance on domestic resources. This has been the main concern of the ninth five-year plans. Priority was given to agriculture sector, emphasis was on rural development, adequate employment opportunities, and promoting the programs for the reduction of poverty that were emphasized. And efforts have also been made to stabilize the prices and so as to accelerate the growth rate of economy. This is another important thing. And there is another important thing which was concern for the country, that we wanted to ensure food and nutritional security in India. Not only this one, there was an urgent need for the infrastructure development, particularly in the area of education, in the area of drinking water facility, in the area of primary health, transport, and energy. These were the areas which were of main concern during this plan. And this is naturally the demand for such kinds of the activities that has increased manifold because of the increasing population in the country. And the issues, social issues particularly, which got, although social issues were not ignored, those were taken since the beginning of the planning. But here again, we emphasized social issues, particularly like women empowerment, conservation of certain benefits for this special group of the society, and to create a liberal market for increase in the private investment aspect. And naturally, since it was a liberal economy, that's why initiative to attract private investment that was also undertaken during the plan. During the plan period, the growth rate was targeted as 5.35%, and a percentage of point, which is a percentage point lower than the target GDP growth of 6.5%. Again, growth rate was 5.35%. The 10th 5-year plan, that was from 2002 to 2007, we escalated or increased our GDP, target of the GDP, that was to 8%. And reduction of poverty by 5 percentage point was targeted. Gainful and high quality employment was emphasized. Gender gaps in literacy, those were emphasized, because the literacy rate among the girls in comparison to boys, that was quite alarming one. 20-point program was introduced during this plan period, and we could, but despite the fact that about 8% of the growth rate was targeted, we could achieve only 7.7%. And the 11th 5-year plan, again, objective were almost in the same way, but here, that is how to raise the income, how to reduce the poverty, how to accelerate the GDP from 8% to 10%, and then to maintain it 10% in the 12th plan. Those were although at that time also, it was considered these may not be realistic, but there was boom in economy, everything was going smoothly, and we were progressing, and that's why we raised our target from 8% to 10%. Agriculture GDP growth was also targeted at a very high rate, that is 4% per year, to ensure a broader spread of benefits. Means most of the population in India is dependent on agriculture, and if we increase the growth rate of agriculture, naturally it is likely to benefit all or larger section of population. Particularly, we were concerned that we will be able to create 70 million new work opportunity, and we will be able to reduce 5% unemployment among the educated youth, and we targeted to increase the wage employment, etc., and to reduce the head count of the consumption by 10%, etc. The 11th 5-year plan and 12th 5-year plan, both of these plans emphasized on certain important sector of economy or sector, which is related to the education, health, women and children, and physical infrastructure essential for the development of the country. And naturally, we made the arrangements for the investment, and we say there is another important aspect is housing, etc., that has also been made important one. But during the 12th 5-year plan, when it was implemented, that is from 2012 to 2017, there is a change in the guardianship again at the Government of India level. The BJP came to the power, and at that time, during the Congress regime also, and that the relevance of the planning commission or planning system, that was questioned. because it has been alleged that the planning commissions and the planning institution has become the department, and a controversy or the conflict it was there between the planning commission and the finance commission. As a result of that, the new government, after coming to power, it replaced the planning commissions with the Niti Ayog. And with the about Niti Ayog, we will discuss in another lecture. We will discuss about the Niti Ayog, how it has replaced and what are the functions entrusted to this Niti Ayog, that you will be able to learn from another lecture on the topic. Therefore, for the planning system, planning process which is here, although we have the planning institutions, still we have the planning institutions except planning commission. National Development Council is there, state planning departments are there, but we changed the system of funding the development. Whatever development is within the control of the state, we have devised many new kinds of the strategy by privatizing it, by public-private partnership is there, and again we are also implementing the development programs through the civic societies and contracting out. There are so many things of the economic that in the era of economic liberalization. Therefore, since it has played an important role, that's why this lecture is also equally important as an institution, because it brought a lot of social and economic development for the country. That's all for today. Thank you very much for being with us. Thanks.